So, shalom everybody. Today we'll talk about mostly the idea of the preparations on Friday. What Rav Melamed points out, and because we are in the 21st century, is that in the old days they didn't have refrigeration. They didn't have any other way of they preserved meat by either salting it or roasting it and drying it up. What the non-Jews call beef jerky, but we called cabanos from the Spanish word, which is basically the same thing. It's dried up salami or hot dog, and so the Talmud has a whole discussion about what the Tanaim and the Amoraim used to do in honor of Shabbat, in preparation for Shabbat, and Avram Fried made a song of it called Shabbat Kodesh, where he says. The Tanaim and the Amoraim, meaning the authors of the Mishnah and of the Talmud, they wanted to help with preparations for Shabbat. So Rabbi Hanina lit the candles, Rava salted the fish, Rav Chisda cut the cabbage or some other vegetable that in Hebrew today kruv is cabbage. Rav Nachman would draw the water for Shabbat. Rav Safra would clean the head of an animal because and they used to find worms. I mean, for me, that's very disgusting. But all these people taught us how, even though their wives were doing most of the preparation, that they also wanted to participate. And it started already in the book of Vayikra and Parshat Tzav. It says that when the Kohen removes the ashes from the altar, he wears certain clothing, and they're supposed to be clean. But of course, ashes are not clean, so they dirty those same garments that he wore, and he has to take off those clothing and put on new clothing or clean clothing, and take out the ashes to outside of the temple or outside of the camp when it was still in the desert. And and so this quote is actually also in Masechet Shabbat, and Rashi brings it that this is not the proper way, because why would you wear new clean clothing to take out the ashes? Like, you know that they're going to for sure get dirty again, and then actually they have to become impure during the day and only be able to dunk just before sunset and then eat the consecrated food. So they quote the same quote from Shabbat, Gadim shebishavan k'dera laro, the clothing that the person used to cook a pot for their master should not use the same clothing to pour the cup of wine, because they have to wear clean clothing. And amazingly enough, this same idea is already in Genesis, in last week's parsha, where it says that Rivka took the clothing of Esav, um, that her older son, which were there in the house, and the best clothing. And so the rabbis learned from that one of the excellent midot, traits of Esav, was that he was very respectful of his parents, and he would serve his father only with his, what we call now today, Shabbos clothing, or what the non-Jews call their Sunday best. The idea of clean clothing, even though he would be dirtied by the process of roasting or cooking. He deposited these special clothing by his mother. Rashi says that it's because he didn't trust his wives, but bottom line is that we understand from this idea that it's proper to wear clean clothing even during the preparation, because of this holiness of Shabbat. Last but not least, before we go into Rav Melamed, Hashem tells Moshe about the manna. Hineni mamtir lechem min hashamayim, that the people will be receiving the manna and gather it every single day. But on the sixth day, chapter 16, verse 5, on the sixth day, when they apportion what they have brought in, so this is all in past tense, it shall prove to be double the amount that they gathered each day. And then it says, and that they will hechinu et asher haviu, which means that they will cook it or prepare it in different ways. And so a little bit later, when the leaders or the elders came to say to Moshe Rabbeinu that the people took double, He said, "Vayi b'yom hashishi," sorry, verse 22. Laktu lechem mishneh. They collected two portions in order for Shabbat, and in verse 23 it says, "This is what Hashem meant. Tomorrow is a day of rest, a holy Shabbat of Hashem. Bake what you would bake and boil what you would boil, and all that is left put aside to be kept until morning." And that's the day that even though the manna did not fall, it did not become